I spent 2.5 hours today writing my review.
Every spiritual nerd's wet dream is this book review.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it turns out good. For me, I'm trying to find 3 things. First is substance. Like, what are they teaching? I want to know the actual material itself, the substance of it. But then is the trajectory. Where does it go? Mm-hmm. And that's our kind of favorite question. Mm-hmm. If you take in the substance, where does it send you? What's the trajectory of the work? And then the third is just like an analysis. Like, is where they're trying to take us actually of light? So there's 2 ways to go about it, right? And one is to just feel into it and go, ooh, this isn't for me, and I don't even know why. Mm-hmm. But I want to go deeper than that. And then in their words, not in mine, tease out, okay, where does this actually go, and is this actually light? Mm-hmm. So that's the mission I set off to accomplish here. And why? Because I don't want to follow a system that isn't light.
Right.
Because the reality of it is all of the spiritual teachings kind of use the exact same words. Light, darkness, creator, higher self. Language is very flexible, and you can define those words to mean whatever you want. For example, here's my first quote. The law of one, though beyond the limitations of name, as you call vibratory sound complexes, may be approximated by stating that all things are one. That there is no polarity, no right or wrong, no disharmony, but only identity. All is one, and that one is love, light, light, love, the infinite creator. So again, the words that they're using here, the infinite creator, light, love, light, those words sound very good, and it's complex, and a lot of people talk about it, and it's really popular. Spiritual teachers are putting it everywhere. There's all of the hallmarks of it being good, so I have to kind of look beyond that and go, what do these words actually mean? What's the actual substance? Where does this actually go, and is it light? Now we get into the actual thing. And first, there are some red flags from the beginning. So first, something feels off. There's something feels off. Uh-huh. From the very beginning, something feels off. And that, for me, is a big red flag. That is my ultimate red flag. But something feels off. The second is the origin story. So how this content came about is a little bit odd. Because Don, who's the questioner, he's asking the questions to Ra. Carla's the one in trance. Don hosts this group, and he gets like 12 people from his physics class, and he wants to do an experiment to see if these people will start channeling or make contact, but he just calls it a meditation group. Nobody ends up channeling until this guy comes in and channels, and then the guy's being says, I don't understand why you guys aren't channeling. There's so much information here, and then everyone starts channeling.
Interesting.
So that's how that whole group started. Carla was then brought into that group by her boyfriend. Carla just liked listening to everybody else channeling. Mm-hmm. Then Don lost all of his channels. There was no one in the group anymore, so Don asked Carla if she wanted to channel. She didn't really want to, but she started channeling.
It's good.
So the origin story from the very beginning, right? It's like
yourself.
Is that how light works? Is that how it goes? Like, there's something's a little bit weird there. That her own inner sense was like, yeah, this isn't for me, but I enjoy being here. And then she kind of gets like matched with this role. Yeah, so it's a little people pleasing. So the origin story, another red flag for me. I'm going, okay, that's a little bit weird, but I can get past it. We can move on. But then you get into it, and Carla's having a rough go, a really rough go. And out of those 1,000 pages,
that's how you know it's light.
That's how you know it's light. Maybe a quarter of it is there anything we can do to make the instrument more comfortable? They call her the instrument. Dawn calls her the instrument, and the beings call her the instrument. So she's just the instrument. Her kidneys are failing. She has like crazy arthritis in her hands. There are multiple moments throughout the whole text where they're like, oh, sorry, we misspoke. Carla's under a very severe distortion of pain, but she's the instrument, and she's having a very hard time. That for me is another very big red flag.
Yeah. So this is definitely benevolent, right?
That's what they say, right? That's what they say. They use all the right words and let people love this.
We're from the council, and we're here to help.
Yes. They're all, sharing information. Jim's transcribing it, but Carla's out. She's out. She's long gone. Like at the end, they have to like call her name multiple times to try to get her to come back, and she slowly comes back into her body.
That is crazy.
She's out like a light. She has no idea what happens.
Wait, and how does she sound when she channels?
She sounds like, I am Ra. Mind, body, spirit.
I get it.
So it's like that. So every section, there's 106 of them. Everyone's like an hour and a half.
My God.
But they're not short, but they're not an hour and a half long. Like if we transcribed us talking for an hour and a half, it'd be fucking long.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be long.
Yeah.
But that's the pace at which this is going, which is also for me, which is a big red flag. When I listened to it,
Yeah.
I was like, this is weird. This is odd. So now, given those red flags, I'm like, okay, let's continue and let's get to the actual heart of the three questions. Okay, so first is, what are they teaching? So now I got to run through
my opinion. Not defamation.
It is of my opinion that this is dog shit. We will let the facts speak for themselves. Okay, so what are they teaching? They're teaching the law of one, that all is one, right? So that's kind of the core of all of this. The all is one. And the little section I read before that almost meant nothing essentially said that. All is one, and that one is love/light, light/love, comma, the infinite creator.
I understand that. Like, I understand.
You understand that all is one?
In a sense. But, like, for me, it's always been the byproduct of individuating. The oneness, like, yeah, whatever. Who fucking cares? We know. We're all connected, blah, blah, blah. Like, we know. We're all in this thing. We're all experiencing this life.
Droplets of the ocean.
Yeah. I get that on that level. This is, like, so reverse.
Something seems off, right? So let's keep going. What are they teaching? So one is all is one. That's their core teaching. But then they get into this galactic context. It's essentially astronomy, like the current secular viewpoint of we are on a globe. There are other planets out through the solar system revolving around the sun. The sun's a part of the larger galaxy, but they're layering into this the metaphor, really. They wouldn't call it that, but it's the metaphor of how these higher orders of reality work. So they're saying that they're from Venus. These beings are from Venus, and they went through a third density like our experience, and then were harvested into a higher density over time. That's the language they use, harvested. Harvested.
Wow. I feel like that's pretty dark.
It sounds weird, but who knows? It's just language. They were harvested into a higher density. They work as a confederation of planets in service to the one infinite creator.
All I'm visually seeing is that, like, that hub. Is it in Westworld? That, like, the AI hub? Or
Rehoboam, or the big AI.
Yeah, that's all I'm seeing. In service to that thing.
Sure. So we'll have to tease that apart over time. So they're saying that they're representatives from Venus as a collective. They're a social memory complex, which means they're a collective that has compiled all of its data into a central hub, and they operate under one intention and one direction. So it's a collective all unified under a single direction.
That's like New World Order.
Sure. So you're gonna have to let me get through this, because right now it's just, what are they teaching, right? So I'm just trying to take it at face value. Face value. We're just
not triggered.
Yeah. So let's just pretend we're not triggered, and we're just trying to. Yeah.
Okay.
Ra, it's a sixth density social memory complex, is working underneath and as a part of the confederation of planets in service to the one infinite creator. That confederation is 50-some civilizations spread out over 500-some planets. And they're all working under a Council of 9. And this Council of 9 lives in the 8th density of the rings of Saturn.
Perfect.
There are 9 of them, and they have 24 guardians. And if you do 24 plus 9, you get 33. So there are 33 beings at the...
Perfect. That's perfect.
Which, as we know, 33 is a very light number that we all have associated with light.
I have no comments.
Yes, 0 comments at all. They're operating under the Council of 9 from Saturn. In number, the council that sits in constant session is 9. That is the Session Council. To back up this council, there are 24 entities which offer their services as requested. These entities faithfully watch and have been called the Guardians.
They're literally describing the dark hierarchy.
That would be my assumption, yes. That would 100% be my assumption. Yes, it seems as though they're describing what we would call the dark hierarchy. But let's just take it at face value. They're teaching that all is one. There's Ra, and Ra works as a part of the Confederation, which works underneath the Council, and the Council has its 24 guardians.
I need a map. Hold on.
Okay.
They're from
Venus. Yep.
6 density beings.
A 6th density social memory complex. So they're a collective unit.
Okay. And then how does Saturn come into play?
Saturn is just where the council sits.
But what about Venus?
Venus is where Ra is. Ra is different from the Council of 9. Ra speaks as a 6th density social memory complex, but then there's a 7th and 8th density.
Okay.
This council is from the 8th density, and that's as high as it goes. This is the council that runs everything.
Okay.
They run everything. So when Ra goes, oh, I see that there could be something useful for Earth, they don't go to Earth. They go to the council and ask, is this okay? The council either approves or denies their request, and they break the quarantine because there's a quarantine around Earth.
Just like 2020.
Yes, so we're under quarantine, and in order to come into the Canadian hotel where we are being quarantined, you need to go and present your plan to the council, and the council then approves or denies that request.
Oh my God, this is literally like describing darkness to a T.
Yeah, but it's in service of the infinite creator. I don't know if you heard that word, but creator is obviously light. Does that make sense though?
Yeah, I'm still a little confused about Saturn, honestly. It just feels like a cosmic joke. As we've come to know in 2020 plus, like Saturn, time, Chronos, that whole thing is what it's like Messianic, Illuminati, whatever, insert, whatever.
Saturn is a big one. It's a big one.
With.
Yes, 100%.
So it feels like to me when I'm listening to you, Saturn, it doesn't fit this storyline. I understand. Like I get it. You laid it out. I can visualize it. But it feels like it's like a nod to darkness. Mm-hmm. And if you can see it, you can see it. If you don't, you don't. It means nothing if you don't understand the world we're currently living in.
Yeah, I would agree. I also have that opinion. The point of this whole context is to be harvestable, which means moving up a density of reality. So when you're harvestable, you're able to move from the 3rd density into the 4th density. And I'll get into what those are.
Harvestable by who? Who needs to harvest you?
Well, just you're being harvested by the one infinite creator, which means moving up a density of reality. So when they say harvesting, they're saying you want to move from 3rd density into 4th density. So then we have to get into okay, what are these densities actually? Because harvesting just means moving up a density. What does that actually mean? They teach that there are 8 densities in an octave, like the musical scale. Okay?
Fucking.
I know, the octaves.
I fucking hate the octaves.
So they teach that there are 8 densities in the octave, or you can think of it as 7. There's 7 notes, right? But then C to C is 8. So they're saying that the 8th and the 1st are essentially the same, but it's 1 through 8, right? So we're existing in the yellow density or the 3rd density, which is we see ourselves as individuals. And we 3rd density beings are trying to be harvested into the 4th density or the green density of love. That happens by either being above 50% of service to others. So you have to be mostly service to others.
I saw a thumbnail that said we were at 51% now.
Okay, so that's why. Because that's the mark that then allows us to be harvested, is we have to be within our own self above 50% service to others.
Do not consent to be harvested.
You have to be above 95% service to self. You have to be like real hard service to self. And then you're able to come into the 4th density, which is love. All of this that's happening is culminating in this choice. They call it the choice, capital the, capital choice. This choice is whether we're going to fork now out into service to others or service to self, and that's going to be our kind of core paradigm of existence. That choice of becoming a 4th density positive being would mean kind of coming into that love vibration, but there's also a way to do it where you kind of bypass the green energy and then make your way toward the 6th, which is wisdom.
Yeah, that's really weird. Like that feels, because most people are going to choose service to others because that's the good one.
Exactly. Let me just finish the densities. There's this fork, and the 4th density is this love, and 4th density is where we become a social memory complex.
Not interested.
Right. Okay. But this is the map. This is their map.
Fine.
Regardless of whether you're interested in it, this is their map. The 4th density is where you become a social memory complex. So we as Earth would become a unified whole, a collective, and then we would identify with that collective and then merge into it, and that would be love. Is what they call it. That's love. Then from there, you move into the 5th density, which is wisdom. They describe this as almost like sitting and like being educated constantly. So I think you're then pulling from the social memory complex, and you're also pulling from the higher densities, and it's the acquisition of wisdom. So they're calling the 5th density wisdom. Then the 6th is where the polarity collapses. So service to self and service to others, both of those paths coalesce because the 6th is unity. So 6th is the unifying, of these social memory complexes. Then there's the seventh density, which is infinite energy, intelligent energy. And then there's the eighth density, or the top of that octave, the eighth and the first, which is the violet ray of intelligent infinity. So that's like the ultimate of the ultimate. That's where everything is going, is this intelligent infinity from which all came. That is the infinite creator. And then right below it is the energy of that. So the intelligent energy. Ra exists in the sixth as a social memory complex that's unified, is working in the unity vibration. And then to get there, you have to acquire wisdom. But first, you have to become a social memory complex. You have to kind of open your heart and merge with essentially what we call a collective field.
Mm-hmm. Wait, so that's weird. So the ultimate is getting to Saturn. Why would you be, we're from the eighth density.
Yep.
And then we'll describe the eighth density a little bit later. And the eighth density is like the ultimate wisdom, violet ray.
Yeah,
like,
so we'll get to that because it's
how does that make sense?
It doesn't. It doesn't. And that's one of my kind of core big red flags. That's where ultimately my research and review is going, is in that exact direction. But for now, those are the densities.
Okay.
So they're teaching this as a map or context of reality. They're saying that this trajectory is the trajectory. This is what you do. You are harvested or you're not harvested. And if you're not harvested and you aren't moving up these densities, what the fuck are you even doing? Right? It's like this is it. This is the path of evolution. This is this is the light. This is the light/love or love/light. That's how they set all of this up, and that's the context. Why the context matters is the way I see it. When you believe the world works a certain way, all of your actions funnel into that. Like one of the main problems and one of the main challenges we see on Earth right now is that we don't know where the fuck we are. We don't know what the hell we're doing here. We don't know what our purpose is. We don't even know who we are. We don't know how our bodies work. We don't know what society even is. We don't know whether things are good or bad or light or dark. We have no idea how to orient ourselves within things. So even if we want to be good, and I believe most, like an overwhelming majority of souls here are light, an overwhelming majority. Most souls, I really believe, are light. But we're operating within these reality contexts, these conceptualizations of what reality is that funnels our goodness into a very specific output. So we have to know whether or not this map, whether headed toward this pyramid of the intelligent infinity, whether we're going to merge into the eighth density and then move into a new octave Saturn, or whatever it may be, we need to know that this direction is the right direction, or we shouldn't even go from third to fourth.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I'm not going.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll just fucking respawn here.
Yeah.
All the live long day.
So that's now my question, right? So that's the substance. That's the main substance of what this entire all 1,000 pages are kind of talking about. And there's other practices and there's things, but now my question is, okay, so where does this go? What does that trajectory actually mean? It's a context that's designed to get us to freely choose.
Can we just take a breather?
Sure. Yes, we can.
I wore green today in honor of being harvested into the fourth density.
That's awesome.
I'm looking to get harvested.
That's awesome.
If you want to get harvested, wear green. Okay.
All right, we ready?
Next segment.
We ready?
Yeah.
Step 2.
Needed a second.
Where does this go? Where does it go? Let's find out. So back to the context idea, right? Like this is a context of reality that's designed to take us along a specific trajectory. This is presented as a choice of you can choose and you can polarize, and as long as you're 95% service to self or 50% service to others, you're going to be harvested. You're going to move on. You're going to go to the next density. This is what you were mentioning. There's an obvious bias here in that we want to be good. We want to do the right thing, right? We want to choose the best possible path. Even though it's presented as a choice, since we want to be good, there's a very clear trajectory.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's very clear 100%. That we're going to go, obviously service to others. Like, I'm not going to be a dick. I'm not going to do the service of self thing. That's not what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to do the service to others thing. I didn't really mention this anywhere in here, but they're saying that there are fourth density beings from the Orion system that are interfering. And there's a lot of interference, and it's the source of most of Carla's pain throughout the whole thing. Dawn, Carla, and Jim, who's their like basically their stenographer, yeah. That's funny. He's the one who transcribes all of the writings.
So yeah, accurate.
They're told by Ra to love this being.
Wait, what?
The being that's attacking them. They're told to love the being because that's what you do when you're in the service to others path. So they start calling this being that's attacking them their companion. they're like, do you got any intel about the companion? Is he still around? Carla has these experiences where she's walking around the house and she feels like she's stepping on and killing a bunch of like little animals underneath her feet. And they're like, yeah, that was interference from the Orion. There's all of these really dark experiences, really dark and twisted experiences, and like physical body ailments that are developing from this. And they're like, yeah, there's interference from the Orion, because when you're polarized so hard to service to others and making the call to the one infinite creator, it also sends out a call of equal strength to the service to self, who then wants to repurpose you. So there's this constant tension between
Stop.
Yeah, but there's this constant tension of like, we're doing this service to others thing. We want to do the best. We're listening to you raw. We're going in this way. And there's this service to self, and it's not right. We got to do something about it. And there's this dichotomy that gets created, right? There's the other. And every bad thing that happens to them, it's the Orion group. Every hardship they have, it's the Orion group. There's always this kind of what seems to me arbitrary, this false dichotomy between the Orion group and what they were doing on that other fork and what you're doing, which is good and it's awesome. And
there's really no context that like this is like a sign from God to stop. Like your kidneys are failing, your everything hurts.
No, and we'll kind of get to that. We'll get to that with God. We'll get to where's God and all of this, right? Okay, but where does this go? Right? Where does this go? That's the question I'm trying to answer now. Is just where does this go? Not is this light yet? We're getting there.
Okay.
Just where does their system go? Where are they trying to take people? So they're laying this context of the densities and your move through this, but there's the bias of we're going to be light. So where this goes is along that positive path. The trajectory for us would be moving from third density to fourth and beyond as a service to others being. Right? So what's fourth density? It's love, but it's also becoming a social memory complex. We talked a little bit about this. This is from 11.17. So it's the 17th question in the 11th session. At what stage does a planet achieve social memory? Is Don's question. Ra says, I'm Ra, which Ra says that at the beginning of everything.
It's like, we know.
I am Ra. A mind-body-spirit social complex becomes a social memory complex when its entire group of entities are of one orientation or seeking. Okay. So everybody is under one orientation or seeking. The group memory lost to the individuals in the root of the tree of the mind then becomes known to the social complex, thus creating a social memory complex. So there are group memories lost to the tree of the mind that we normally don't have access to becomes available. So it's kind of like, in our language, it's jacking into the collective field, and you suddenly all of the collective wisdom becomes your wisdom.
Okay.
So then they said in 38.7, the social memory complex is properly a fourth density phenomenon, which for me I was like, okay, cool. So fourth density is becoming, it's not just love, it is social memory complex. That's what's being accomplished here.
Cover.
Love is the word. Carrot. The reality is you become a social memory complex.
Yeah.
So then in 1432, I guess this is a little bit back, he was asking about Edgar Casey. He said, where does the information come from that Edgar Casey channeled? Ra says, I am Ra. We have explained before that the intelligent infinity is brought into intelligent energy from 8th density or the octave. The one vibratory sound complex called Edgar used, which they always talk like that. The one vibratory sound complex called Edgar used this gateway to view the present, which is not the continuum you experience, but the potential social memory complex of this planetary sphere. The term your peoples have for this is the Akashic record or the Hall of Records. They're saying Edgar Casey, who was channeling what we call the collective field, but it's Akashic records or the Hall of Records, and it's the potential, the astral plane. It's the potential social memory complex of this planetary sphere. So they're saying when you're jacked into what we call the collective field, that's the potential social memory complex. That's not even quite yet the social memory complex, but we're trying to get you guys as third density beings to move into that entirely and to become the social memory complex.
I hate this.
So we're becoming a social memory complex along this thing. And in doing so, moving up a density or being harvested. That's success. So what they're saying is in order to move into that social memory complex and to become a channel like Edgar Casey and to, be able to access this collective data center, you have to either be 50% or above service to others. You have to really want to serve others, or you have to be 95% service to self. And as long as you're one of those polarities, then you're able to be harvested or you're able to be moved into this social memory complex. That's the first step of what their transformation is of this trajectory. How are you doing this? You're meditating on polarity and you're accepting both sides within yourself. So love and hatred. I recognize that I have love within myself, but I also know that my love is also on the other side, this hatred, and I need to accept that in myself, that I have hatred in myself, and I need to accept that about myself.
I accept that I hate this book.
And then, yes. And then once I accept it in myself, then I can learn to accept it in others.
Perfect. If
right?
y'all hate it too, I can accept that.
Yes. Then where does all of this go?
Polarity good or bad?
Polarity means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But the way they're using it is the two sides of the same coin, like love and hatred.
Okay.
Two sides of the same coin. You need to learn to accept both of them, recognize that both of them are in you and both of them are in other people. So when someone else is expressing the other side of the polarity that you don't like, you need to learn to accept them. And that is, in a way, accepting yourself, because you're all part of the same larger thing. It's disintegrating your sense of right and wrong.
Exactly. It's Carla becoming a channel when she didn't want to be.
Yeah.
It's betraying your own intuitive access and your own fucking judgment. Judgment's not bad.
Yeah.
We live in a world of psychopaths. I'm not about to fucking love them.
Yeah. So the more we're able to love ourselves in all aspects, the more we're able to also love the other self and move toward that fourth density. Why that's important is because you as a third density being are about to click into what we call the collective field. And when you go to click into this social memory complex, you're going to be faced with a bunch of things that aren't you, and you need to be able to accept them with love because you are merging into the collective. You're becoming Earth. And if you're going to become Earth, you need to learn to not judge Earth, or you won't forego your own identity, your own sense of self in favor of what that social memory complex is. Right? So you need to de-individuate.
Yep.
You need to become the collective.
Yep.
That's step
This is
one.
literally the dark agenda. They're laying it out so plain.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah. Once we get to that fourth density, what are we doing? That I think is an important question of where does this all go? Once we get there, what are we doing? Once we're in this fourth density of love as a social memory complex, what are we doing? Well, we keep going up the chain. Right?
We keep getting harvested.
We keep getting harvested. We see everything as one. We move toward wisdom, then unity, and then the intelligent energy and intelligent infinity. When the positive adept or student touches intelligent infinity from within, this is the most powerful of connections, for it's the connection of the whole mind-body-spirit complex, microcosm, with the macrocosm. The adepts, the students, then become living channels for love and light and are able to channel this radiance directly into the planetary web of energy nexi. So our job then, once we're the social memory complex, our job is to bring the intelligent infinity from the 8th density and the 7th density of the intelligent energy into ourselves and then radiate that out.
Yeah, and hijack the collective field.
Into the collective field.
They're explaining their hijacking process.
Yes. We're assisted in this process of moving through this and then pulling the intelligent infinity out, radiating into the collective field by higher density beings like the Confederation, but also our higher self. This sounds benign. It's the higher self. This is the one deeper explanation I'll do, exploration, because it shows how complicated and tricky this map is. So the higher self, I think of very differently than the way this is presented. So a simple question, what is the higher self? The higher self, as you call it, that is the self which exists with full understanding of the accumulation of experiences of the entity, aids the entity in achieving healing of the experiences which have not been learned properly, and assists, as you've indicated, in further life experience programming, as you may call it. So there is this being that exists with a full understanding of the entity, of you, and they aid you in achieving healing of the experiences which have not been learned properly.
Yeah.
So the things you haven't learned properly, this entity helps you to heal. It knows you very well, and it knows exactly where you need to be going. That's this higher self. So I read that and I'm like, that's weird. That's not exactly what I think of as a higher self, but that still is like, okay, maybe I can read between the lines there. Maybe there's still something here. What is this? Then in 70.9, Don's trying to get clear on this. So this is way later. Don says, I think I have an erroneous concept of the mind-body-spirit complex. I'm going to try to unscramble it. The way I see it right now is that I'm existing in two different locations, here and in mid-6th density simultaneously. Is this correct? Then Ra comes in and says, you're existing at all levels simultaneously, which is necessary for this to work. It's specifically correct that your higher self is you in mid-6th density. And in your way of measuring what you know of as time, your higher self is yourself in your future. So he's saying the higher self is a different being than you that exists in the mid-6th density. So there's you, and there's also another version of you somehow that also exists in mid-6th, which is unity. So you're already merged with this thing, but it exists in your future. That was confusing to me. Then Don asks, am I correct in assuming that all of the mind-body-spirit complexes that exist in the levels below mid-6 density have a higher self in mid-6 density? Is that correct? Ra goes, this is correct. So everybody who's not in mid-6 density has a 6 density being that looks out for them, knows where they're going and what would be best for them, and helps to correct their misperceptions. The higher self does not manipulate its past selves. Oh, no. It protects when possible and guides when asked. But the force of free will is paramount. And Don goes, what I'm trying to understand here is more about the higher self and its relationship with the mind-body-spirit complex. Does the higher self have a 6th density mind-body-spirit complex that is a separate unit from the mind-body-spirit complex that is in this case displaced to negative time-space? Ross says, I am wrong. This is correct. The higher self is the entity of a mid-6 density which, turning back, offers this service to itself. So the higher self is a 6th density being that's you, but it's not you, that guides you. And it guides you along this process of moving into that unity and eventually into that intelligent infinity. And it's you, but it's not you because it's you from the future. And why that confused me is because it makes no fucking sense. But what it started to flag for me was, how can they say this? Because for me, I go, this is just an external being. It's obvious. It's obvious that this is a being that's just assigned to you. Very fucking clear. Very clear that there's a 6th density being that's merged into unity that's assigned specifically to you. And it's their mission to help you specifically and guide you through this process toward the intelligent infinity. It's very clear to me that's what's happening, but why would they say that this is you from the future? That doesn't make sense. And it clicked, and I realized because if you're headed in that direction, they can go, you're going to become us anyway, so we are you and this is you. It's an external being, but this is the being you're soon to merge with if you continue to go on this. So in a way, it's your higher self. And this is one of the main things, other than the Council of Saturn, which I'll get to. This is one of the main things that made it really click for me how tricky it is. How first off, complicated as fuck. Like the words hardly mean anything. They're so dense, so complicated. But that they can play those little tricks and go, well, this is an external being, but we're not going to say it's an external being. This is you. For them to say it's you is only true if all is one.
Right.
The way it gets laid out, it makes it feel like, oh, like there's this higher version of me that's calling me forward. That feels good.
I know.
But when that being isn't you, it's who you are becoming. And who you are becoming is becoming that being. Do you know what I mean? Then it's deceptive. Then it's like you're meant to merge toward this being. That's not really who you are. That's not your essence. But if you want to make it into these higher densities, here's your guide. They'll teach you how to get there. You become more like them, and they'll show you what's wrong with you. There's no understanding here of your soul being unique and of you having a soul purpose. None of that's here. There's no individual soul purpose in this map at all.
Yeah, it's all about merging.
Yeah, if you want to be good, you merge. If you want to be a good little boy, you merge because you don't want to be those service to self guys like the Orion who's attacking you. You don't want to be like the psychic attack fucks who are coming after you and making your kidneys fail and making you allergic to everything.
That is so crazy to me. Like I don't feel any sense of light or God or anything. Like I feel like
God's not in this map at all, except for where God is necessary. And they use the word the logos, they use the word the creator, and even in creator, they mean they created this thing.
Yeah,
they mean at the Council of Nine and all of it, they set things up this way. They built the collective field. They structured things the way they are. So they are the creator. And there's that weird, like, no, we're the creator. There's that weird feeling in there where they don't mention the creator. And I'll get to that. I'll get to that same thing soon, actually.
Can you pause for a second? I have to pee. I've drank so much liquid.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, I've read so much. It's crazy how much I've read. Okay. So Carla validated this channel, validated Ra as good from the very beginning by calling in Jesus. And since she called in Jesus and Ra didn't go away, that's how she knew that it was light. And that's why for me, I need this. This is this kind of analysis. This is what I do with my own work. I do the same fucking thing.
I know.
I've tried my best to rip apart our own work in the exact same way, and I push up and I push back on beat, and I need it to be validated deeply. Like, it's not like I'm looking at the channeling phenomena from an outside perspective and going like, ew. Because I'm a channel. Like, you would think that you would become more of yourself. And like, I don't think I know that that's what happens. When you channel light, when you work with God, that's how it happens. I live it. I live inside the experience. I feel so much fucking better. Normally, I can feel there's a little like, there's just like a tension throughout my whole body. Just a little bit. I can feel it. It's
the carrot.
It's just always there. Yeah, Miriam goes, it's the carrot. That's the carrot that's permanently up my asshole. But when B comes in, I feel my whole system relax in a way that I can't access at all. I can't get there. I don't know what it is. I can't get my system to be that calm. But as soon as B comes in, it's peace and calm all the way through my whole system. My whole body relaxes. I feel so much fucking better. And to contrast my experience as a channel with her experience as a channel.
Right.
Like, what the fuck?
Right.
What in the world?
I know. When I look at the other channels out there, they're not like healthy. They don't look well.
Yeah.
And they're all saying some iteration of this law of one foundation.
I know. Everybody teaches the law of one. Everybody. This was 1981, by the way.
Wow.
But since that time, I mean, all of the like new age people, they all reference stuff from the law of one, whether or not they know it came from here.
Right.
And I think most people don't know where this stuff came from. So I guess with that in mind, I want to continue on where this goes.
Okay. I'm ready. You guys ready?
Yeah, ready? Brace yourself. Once I explored the higher self, there's this sense of like, okay, what does that higher self work for? All of these beings that seem to be sixth density unity beings, they're helping us, but what do they work for? Right?
Exactly.
This higher self, which is this sixth density being that is guiding you and knows you and is personally assigned to you.
Mid sixth density being, right?
I think, yeah, maybe.
Mid
maybe.
means like not great.
Yeah, like, yeah. That's funny. He's not new to sixth density, but like, you know, he's mid.
He's mid.
So who does this being ultimately work for? The same thing that everyone does. The same thing that Ra works for, other contacts for Earth. They talked about other systems also coming to Earth, and all of them get permission directly from this Council of Saturn. The Council of Nine or the Council of Saturn, they call it the Nine, they call it the Council, but everything is governed by this council. Everything that Ra's doing was approved directly by this council.
Okay.
Everybody works for the council. So what's the council? From the very beginning, this is 7.9. This is just the 7th session. The members of the council are representatives from the Confederation. So they're from the Confederation. They're from this Confederation of planets. They're representatives. In number, the council that sits in constant session is 9. I've read this piece before. That's the session council. To back up this council, there are 24 entities which offer their services as requested, called the Guardians. Okay, but what is it? 6.8, this was early.
Yeah.
6.8, the Council of Saturn, which again governs all things, allowed Ra to break quarantine to do this work, is located in the octave or 8th dimension of the planet Saturn, taking its place in an area which you understand in third dimensional terms as the rings. So they use the word dimension and density interchangeably. So either this council is the intelligent infinity, they are the top of the pyramid, or they exist within the top of the pyramid. And either way, that changes everything. If the Council of Saturn is in the 8th dimension, or in the octave, that means everyone is working toward the Council of Saturn. That means the energy, the intelligent energy, is of them.
Yeah.
It's the Council of Saturn's energy. That means the 6th density beings are working with the energy of the Council of Saturn.
Yeah.
That means everything is moving toward becoming whatever the fucking Council of Saturn wants.
Yeah.
There are these 9 beings.
It's literally the dark agenda laid out to a T.
Exactly. The council has complete control over all of this.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. Because there is no God in this context.
Yes.
There's no benevolence.
Yes.
There's zero.
So you're already right on it, but this is my third question.
Okay.
Like, now that we know what the substance of this material is, and we know the trajectory, is it actually light? Right? That's what all this is for. That's what ultimately what I wanted to figure out. And in order to answer that, you have to ask, is this council God? That's the only question that really matters. It's at the root of everything, because everything's moving toward the council. Everything's moving toward the intelligent infinity. The council's energy is the whole fucking 7th density. And their intelligence, themselves, is the 8th. It's the intelligent energy and intelligent infinity are 7th and 8th. And the 6th is just unity. That's where all of these other beings are existing. So is this council God? I searched God and it was in there 7 times. There's one point where it's like, and you become like a god. There's one of that.
Mm-hmm.
There's gods. Gods is in there.
Mm-hmm.
They use a lot of words like creator. They use logos, intelligent infinity, but they only use God in the way we think of it once. It's only in there once. And they didn't even say the word. Don said the word. There was a question from Don because he was looking at a transcript by this guy, Henry Puharich, from the 9, because this Henry guy channeled the 9, and Ra told Don that Henry's understanding of the 9 was pretty good.
Oh my God. Poor Henry.
Poor Henry. So then Don's asking about the 9 from Henry's material to Ra in 39.9. So Don says the 9 describe themselves as the 9 principles of God. Can you tell me what they mean by that? And Ra says, I am Ra. This is also a veiled statement. The attempt is made to indicate that the 9 who sit upon the council are those representing the Creator, the one Creator, just as there may be 9 witnesses in a courtroom testifying for one defendant. So they're the intelligent infinity, they represent God. And they want us to be merging with the collective field to become a social memory complex. We give up our individuation to become a collective self and align our efforts with the efforts of these other beings in higher densities. And we love our way into a sea of oneness under the direction of 33 beings, which are the Council of Saturn and their guardians, and align with a higher good as seen by them. We become them, but it's okay because all is one and it's 100% our choice. And that already, I come to the conclusion that, at least it is my opinion, that is dark as fuck.
Yeah.
And since it's dark as fuck, right? When I stand on that opinion, then I look at everything else with a completely different perspective. Because then it doesn't matter whether they say source, creator, universe, logos, whether they use the word Adonai, which is like a Hebrew name for God, right? It doesn't matter what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
The material itself is meant to take me along a trajectory of me merging, first of all, with humanity, which is not the point of us being here, then merging even further to create a massive web of dark data. Then eventually we can merge all together into a single larger social memory complex where we all just love each other and we accept that we're different and we love the vibration and we all work for these fucking 9 beings.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
From a dark perspective.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. I mean, it lines up with everything. Like I keep thinking of, what's his name? Yuval Harari. It's like, oh, he probably channels one of the 9.
Yeah.
It's got that similar flavor.
Yes. And then you take the number 33 and you take Saturn and then it just
even
clicks.
The cube stuff or the square or whatever, they are obsessed with fucking squares.
Yeah. We've talked about this before. We did a video recently on our channel. Why does God send dark souls to Earth?
Oh yeah.
Right. The darkness in charge here is not the Orion group. It's not these service to self, like petty, weak little narcissists. It's these beings that are incredibly organized, unbelievably organized. And they all work using all of their resources of all of the experience that any of these beings have ever had across 500 civilizations, 500 planets, whatever it is. There's beings that have lived a lot of life, a lot of places, and they are creating a conglomerate. And that's right. You brought up Westworld. You brought up the AI. That's what they're creating.
Yeah.
They're creating a central AI that's not just humanity. Like AI on Earth is stupid compared to what this is.
Exactly.
Because first off, it's only written information on the AI here. This is like spiritual information.
Yeah.
Like you're merging and putting the totality of your experience into this thing. It is soul data from across countless iterations, billions of iterations of life, all conglomerated into a single wise entity that's interfacing then, I think, with this Council of 9. And the Council of 9 is making determinations from this massive data for what the good of everything should be. And
this is how you get God outside of God.
Yeah, this is how you get God outside of God. And the thing they call the first distortion of free will is quite literally the separation from God. And they're saying that separation from God was the best thing that could have ever happened because now we can grow faster because we can fight with each other, we can push off of each other. And they say at some point that the adept who is deeply advanced at some point learns to create catalyst for his own self.
Mm.
They're saying you get catalyst from other beings and from your higher self and from the sixth density, and we're here to help catalyze your evolution. But at some point, you're going to be able to decide for yourself what your own experience is, and you're going to be able to shape the world as you want to give yourself your own catalyst. The whole point of reality, God's giving you catalyst that's specifically designed to press you even deeper to yourself and individuate.
Yep.
Why would you want to create your own catalyst? And even before you're capable of creating your own catalyst, why would you want anyone else to give you a catalyst other than divinity that has your own benefit in mind? It makes no sense. This map's completely backwards. And this is the most thorough record of how darkness functions I've ever seen. It's so detailed.
I know.
It's so unbelievably comprehensive.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe this is how they think. I really do.
Yeah.
They think that they are of service to others and that this is the way to do it, and that in God, you don't grow fast enough. It's too cushy. You know too much. You need to be veiled. You need to cut off yourself from God and reclaim your free will. That's how they think of it. They're saying in God, when you're following divinity, do you really have free will? Do you really have the ability to make decisions? Well, can't you see that something's a little bit better? What if we all got together and we figured out something that was better than what? What would happen then?
Yeah.
That's the design. And it's like a rake being drawn in the sand of like, just follow these lines and you'll get there. But like when you follow these trajectories, where the fuck do you think you're going? You're going to merge with these 9 beings who say that they're aspects of God or represent God. They're principles of God. That's not God. We have access to God very fucking directly. Why would we go to 9 beings who say they speak for God when they don't? When they say the exact opposite of what God's saying? Because these beings are saying merge with all of humanity and then have all of humanity merge with us, and eventually we'll be smart enough that we'll be able to create the highest good. There's this idea that theoretically at some point the sum of all of its parts will be greater than God.
That's why they call it harvest, right? They're trying to harvest all these intuitive people that want to do good. And bring them on this path. In order to inform their collective field. Whatever the fuck that thing's called. All right, so where are they now?
Yeah, so this is the final piece. This is just the nail in the coffin for me. If I look at all of this, and I needed to get to the point where philosophically I could go, yep, that's dark. Yep, that's ew, ah.
Guys, wait till you hear this.
But then, what happened to the people closest to Ra, to this material? First, there's Carla. Carla had a hard time the entire time, right? So there's this one interaction here, because every other time they say it's Orion interference, it's her distortions, it's the candle that's at the top above her head needs to be rotated 10 degrees, and then she'll have a better time. You need to do this banishing ritual. You need to flick water at the walls and purify with salt along all of the openings in the windows, and then brush off with a virgin broom to signify the cleansing broom that's never been used for anything else. You got to buy a new broom. You can't use your broom. You got to buy a new broom, a virgin broom, and then brush the salt off of the windowsill.
What?
There's all of these things that they need to be doing. And Dawn asks this question every single time. How's the instrument? That's first. How's the instrument? And then what can I do to make the instrument more comfortable? Or how can I make this connection even better? Is at the end. That's a beginning and end every single session. And always there's an answer. And it's always complicated. Yes, the instrument seems to have an allergic reaction to the substance that you call buttermilk. Like it's real in depth.
It's like all of her fault.
But it's all her fault. It's all external, or it's their fault, or there's something that's wrong, or it's the Orion influence's fault. But there's this one part in 77. This is the one time that it seemed honest. Ra says, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. Dawn says, was the instrument under attack just prior to this session? Ra goes, I am Ra. This is correct. Is there anything that we could do to help protect the instrument from these attacks prior to this session? I am Ra. This is correct. What could we do? I am Ra. Your group could refrain from continuing this contact. Is that the only thing we could do? I am Ra. That is the only thing you could do which you were not already attempting with a whole heart. It got to the point, and this kind of broke my heart when I read this, because it got to the point where they were like, you're doing everything you can. You're still under psychic attack. You were under psychic attack just before the session. Is there anything we can do? You could stop channeling Ra.
Yeah.
They were honest. They were honest.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the only time that it wasn't convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
It was the only time. Then there's Dawn. Randomly. This is in 106. Dawn goes, I'm going to come back to a couple points here, but I have to get in a question about myself.
Mm.
Normally he's just asking about the instrument. I got to get a question about myself. It seemed to be critical at this point. Can Ra tell me what's physically wrong with me and what's causing it and what I could do to alleviate it? They're having a rough go. So they're like, you're getting old. Your body doesn't process minerals very well.
Right.
And you have like a overabundance of aluminum in your system and it's affecting your colon.
From the chemtrails.
You also, that
we've been spraying.
You also got an infection in your mouth. And he goes, okay, can you help me with these things?
Right.
And they go, you and Carla made a joke, which is what it sounds like. They didn't exactly say that, but you had a transfer of mental and emotional energy with Carla where she suggested that you go in trance and she be the strong one. And then you can be small and foolish like her. And you agreed. And that's messed you up.
Mm.
So you got to undo that karma now with Carla. And you got to very carefully go in and tease apart why you were the questioner and why she's the instrument and why you can't switch roles. And then maybe things will be better. That was their answer.
Mm-hmm.
So then it ends. And this is 106.23. This is the very last thing. I would just ask if there's anything we can do to help the instrument and make her more comfortable or improve the contact. And what would be the soonest Ra would recommend this next contact? I was like, wait, this is 106. This is the last part of the book. Why is the last question, how can we improve the contact? And what would be the soonest Ra would recommend the next contact? Mm-hmm. He says, you have complete freedom to schedule workings. And then he goes into, I am Ra. We leave you, my friends, in the love and glorious light of the one infinite creator. Go forth then, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite creator, Adonai. That's how they end the whole thing. It's like, wait, what happened? Where's 107? What happened? Then you click and there's the epilogue. This is the last chapter. And it starts off and it says Jim. It's Jim : So this is Jim talking. Epilogue to book 5. Okay. I'm just going to read it word for word.
Okay.
After we moved back to Louisville, the mental and emotional dysfunction which Ross spoke of concerning Don occurred. Don was noted all his life for being very cool and extremely wise, emotionally unmoved by events which caused others to fall apart. His observations and advice always proved to be correct. Now, as this dysfunction worsened, Don saw himself intensely affected by even the smallest stimuli. His worrying deepened to depression, and he sought healing counsel from every available source, yet nothing worked, and he resigned himself to a death which he saw quickly approaching. After 7 months of this mental, emotional, and physical deterioration, he became unable to sleep or to eat solid foods. By November, he had lost 1/3 of his body weight and was experiencing intense pain. He refused further hospitalization, which we saw as the last hope for his survival. The thought of having him put into a hospital against his will was abhorrent to us, but we decided to do it and to hope for a miracle, knowing of no other possible way to save Don's life at that point. When the police came to serve a warrant, a 5½ hour standoff resulted. Don was convinced his death was imminent, and he did not want to die in a mental hospital. When tear gas was used to bring Don out of the house, he walked out of the back door and shot himself once through the brain. He died instantly. That was the law of one. That's how it ended.
That is fucking nuts.
My jaw dropped.
No one talks about that.
I sat there just saying, what the fuck? What the fuck? For 10, 15 minutes, and I could not stop thinking about it. It's all I could think about was what the fuck? How? It was the first time Don mentioned anything about himself. He's this very scientific, this very eloquently speaking man. He's holding it down. He's the questioner. He's so concerned for Carla. Want to make sure her instrument's okay. Hey, Ra, when can we schedule the next thing? And then he just completely deteriorates. His whole life falls apart. He loses 1/3 of his body weight. He gets tear gassed by the police after 5½ hours, not wanting to go to the mental hospital, walks out the back door and shoots himself in the head. What the fuck?
Sounds like it's light, huh?
And that for me is just the nail in the coffin where I go, where does this go? Because who was most deeply affected by the law of one? Who was most deeply impacted by this work? It was the guy who was conscious and driving the questioning. Mm-hmm. They were all his questions for his evolution, how he wanted to teach, how he wanted to be a healer, how he wanted to learn all of these things. There were things in there about Jim, a couple things. There were things in there about Carla, mostly how do we keep her from fucking dying from this Orion influence, but it's all Don. Don was the main beneficiary of this work, and that's what this work seemed to have done for him.
Yeah.
That just boggled my mind.
What a crazy path.
And what a crazy ending. That's the epilogue.
That's where the work takes you.
Yeah.
And people, they don't read it.
No. Yeah, because that's the question, right? Is where does this go? Where does this work take you?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to go to merging with the intelligent infinity, with the Council of Nine, doing whatever these 9 beings and their 24 guardians want you to do for the rest of eternity, beyond this life. Not just here. You're gonna get harvested, and then you're gonna serve these beings forever in their effort to create a central AI that runs everything, that does the function of God but worse.
Yeah.
And ideally, we can at least just create a little wedge of doubt in there, of like, hey, like it's okay if you just throw fucking all this shit away.
Like, you just feel into it. If you have fucking connection, you can feel that this shit's dark as shit, and you never even open the book to begin with.
Yep.
That's why most of us here we don't resonate with the law of one. We never have. We've never read it because we've not been guided to.
Yep. All right. I'm a little too drained to keep going. The instrument is the instrument has the distortion of tired. The only other thing I have in here is we'll probably do some more videos, I imagine, at some point on this. But I have this little section at the very end that says, if you don't like what I'm saying, Ra has some advice for you. All are the creator. There's only one vast panoply of biases and distortions, colors and hues in an unending pattern. In the case of those with whom you, as entities and as a group, are not in resonance, you wish them love, light, peace, joy, and bid them well. So that I wrote, so thank you for your love, light, peace, and joy, and for bidding me well. I'm going to continue to call out what I see to be darkness so that those who are trapped in these ideologies can find their way back out to themselves and their role in God. I think it'd be funny at the end of a video. And if you don't like it, then listen to Ra and send me love, light, peace, and joy, and bid me well. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.